Welcome to Consciously Cannabis. I'm Carly, host of Consciously Clueless, the podcast bringing you this series. Together with guests, I'll be exploring cannabis through lenses of sustainability, mindfulness, and plant-based living. Bonus content from Consciously Cannabis will be available at patreon.com/consciouslycarly. Take a hit, or don't, all are welcome here, and let's get lit. I would love to start with On the Revel because I have previously interviewed Jason Starr.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it would be fun to talk a little bit more again about On the Revel, your kind of origin work with that, and we can branch out from there.
On the Revel started in 2016 here in New York City. At that time, I had met my co-founder, Jacoby Holland. We were introduced by a really amazing human, Gia Marone, who was part of Women Grow at a 420 party. And she's, you're doing tech, connect. And it just turned out that we both came from existing markets. So I came up from the Washington State market on the processing or the extraction processing and post-processing side. And then Jacoby came from Colorado, which was one of the first vertical companies that they had out there when we met in New York. And we just started talking about tech. And we also started talking about the events that we've been going to. And at that time in 2016, it was predominantly white male. So Jacoby always calls it male, pale, and stale.
That's amazing.
I call it beige, like beige people, beige walls, beige food, beige carpet, beige conversations. It just didn't really represent who we were and
Just
didn't really
blah.
and it didn't really represent like the backgrounds we came from, how we viewed cannabis in general. And especially being in New York for about 20 years, it just didn't really hit the way that we interpreted cannabis and plant medicine. We were first called the Cannabis Tech Group because it was just an easy lift, right? We both come from tech. We can speak intelligently enough about those subject matters. And it started off as a meetup group. Jacoby was doing IT for a co-working space, so he got the space for us for free. And then we reached out to friends in other markets that we really loved, that we fucked with. And we said, hey, we're doing this meetup. Would you like to come and just lay some truth down? Because at that time in New York, we had a lot of conversations around advocacy, around investment, but there really wasn't anyone talking about the actual ground truth of what was happening in legal markets and the opportunities that we were seeing coming out of those. So I think our first event, I think we had 15 speakers. So It was like a big win for us. We're like, woohoo, friends actually flew in to New York. And we also really understood that the way business is done in New York is very different than, say, from the West Coast. I could have a conversation and a relationship with someone for a decade and it'd all be under Zoom. And we would never have to meet. New York is very different. It's very old world. It's very interactive. I think just because there's such a density population, you're forced to be humans with each other. So New York, especially at this phase of our market, it's very shake hands, look you in the eye, tell me what you're about. It's a very different old world way of connecting, relationship building, and doing business. So what was important for us too is we knew the magnitude of what happened when New York came online. We do have the largest consumer base in the world. And we just wanted to seed people like, hey, if you're looking for folks to talk about cannabis, these people aren't gatekeeping that information. Because again, this was 8 years ago. And a lot of people were very like holding things to their chest, trying to get market share, like really doing business that maybe I'd say more sophisticated industries were already practicing, but it just was that we just thought it was really more important to be collaborative and be able to get people that were telling you the truth and not blowing smoke up your ass, because cannabis, there's lots of those too. So that's what that started, just like a meetup group.
And it was specifically focused on tech.
No, the first one was specifically focused on tech.
And then it was like, okay, wait, there's more here.
Yeah, there's more here because we didn't know what we wanted it to be, right? It was just a test. My background is in user experience, and Jacoby's he's a mathematician and he's worked for CPG groups as an entrepreneur in residence for some of the largest enterprise companies. So we both come from design thinking, which is let's do something small, let's see what happens, and then we'll take those learnings, drop the things that didn't work, refine the things that did work, and add more to it. So it's been a really interesting, like 8-year experiment on using design thinking to curate our programming, our experience. We do a lot of the journeys, like the exhibitor journey, the sponsor journey, the attendee journey.
Mm.
Like we're always trying to walk through what those touch points are. And I think, I don't know if you've been to any of our events as of yet. I hope you come, but um,
No, Zoe was like, we got to get you out
yeah, you
here. I was
gotta come
like,
out.
say
You have
less.
to. You have to. I think what the feedback that we've gotten from people, it feels very different than a standard trade show or a conference.
Mm.
We've always known the importance of community, especially in New York. And that's what we've just been really focused on is making sure that I would say we're not an events company. I think we're more of a hospitality group.
Hmm.
We're really trying to create an environment where people are really open and eager and curious to meet other people, to receive knowledge. So that's the undercurrent that of everything that we do is really creating an experience that people feel comfortable and enjoy.
So you were saying that you wanted to bring some more conversations to light that were maybe not being presented in beige spaces. So what are some of those things that On the Revel is talking about or pushing or discussing that is different, that was what you were missing?
I mean, I had some of the first events I went to, girl, I'd be with my guys, the root scientists, I'll give them a shout out. And I'd be asking questions to any of the exhibitors or any of the people I met. And instead of looking at me and answering me, they would talk to the guy. And I'm like, bro, I'm the decision maker
Hello?
here. Bro, I'm the one that's going to be making the decision, not
I
these guys.
actually have some power here, honey.
I think just having ego checked at the door,
Mm,
vibes are very important to us. We have a strict fuck yes list, we have a strict fuck no list.
yeah.
Because at this point in my life, like I'm 49 and I've been in legal cannabis for almost a decade, coming up at 9 years now. And along with just this industry is life that when you're dealing with a toxic situation or a toxic person and they you bring them into the group, it really quickly spreads. We're what we're really trying to do is just make sure that people are coming and really not being affected or influenced by stupid shit. And it's hard and
Yeah.
weak. It's really hard and weak. There's always lots of bullshit stuff that's happening outside of our control. Being able to create rooms where it feels like all that shit is checked at the door. That's what
Mm,
we're really trying to do. And check your ego at the door. Just be open and just be humble and just be able to learn because I'm still learning. Like I've been 10 years almost in this and I'm still learning all these things. And we're a new market. So it's gonna take a lot of people being patient with one another and also being cool with, hey, this might have worked in California or Colorado or Oregon, but New York's very different in a lot of respects. Some of the things you can definitely reuse your SOPs, but navigating the systems here is a
right.
totally different beast. And understanding that the first set of doors that we have that are opened is our small and medium sized businesses. Our first groups of retailers are the justice impacted folks, which is very different than the general licenses that we're seeing coming in from other states. So just having just an awareness of who you're talking to. I'm always like, hey, if you're coming to New York at this phase, if you're talking to retailers, just be genuine. You don't have to be
Mm,
flossy. Like, our people sense bullshit from a mile away. And if you're going to be talking all this marketing speak, they're just going to look at you and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And walk away. It's genuine
mm-hmm.
connection. It's connecting on some level. And that's what I do really love about New York is it's that way across the board, not just with this industry, but you have to be just New York authentic. That's what New York is right now and has always been. And if you want to come and be silly, it's just not going to be as well respected.
Yeah, I think that is really lovely to point out too that there's even in this industry where it's weed, it's marijuana, there's bullshit. There are the same types of things that are coming up with these systems that are not built for success for everyone, that is going to be present in that market just like in any other market? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, say if you're a person who is down with having a lower risk tolerance, who's able to adapt to very many different types of situations, come through. It's not stable. There's so many things like regulations that change on the fly, or banking, card processing that just stops. There's a lot of unknown.
Wow.
So if you're cool with things like that and you can be chill about it, like this is a great industry for you because you can do whatever the fuck you want in a lot of
Yeah.
respect. Like you can carve out your own path, and that's the beauty of so many things. The other side of the coin is there's no structure in most cases, or very little structure. Some people want to come in. I'm like, if you're married with kids and you're used to like having a very 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or structured holidays and PTO, like this is not the game for you as of right now.
Interesting.
What was I trying to say with that? So I'm just saying the difference also with our conference is we're very upfront. We want to have people come in and speak truthfully and honestly about what the industry is about. That can be inspirational and to make people curious and excited to learn more.
Mm.
But we're not going to blow smoke up your ass. It is not an easy industry, but there's so much opportunity if you are open to being so curious and passionate about it.
So you come from the world of tech and user experience, and you've worked with some incredible clients, huge names. What made you shift from that world to the cannabis market?
It's like the prodigal daughter returns. So I, in fact, I could probably say that marijuana and plant medicine have been in my life since I landed in the United States at the age of 5. Yeah, so I was born in China, and my parents brought me with some of our other family members to Eugene, Oregon. And I don't know if you've ever been to Eugene, if you've seen Portlandia, it is very true. It is still, Eugene is like the hippier sister of Portland.
Damn.
So it's still a very progressive college town. And the funny thing is, when we got here, like the really nice people that befriended my parents, taught them English, babysat me, you show them what American culture was like, because we come from northern China where there's no exposure to the West. It's not like a Hong Kong or Taiwan. It is like straight up
Okay.
northern China. So the folks that kind of adopted us, they're all
Hmm.
cannabis growers, distributors, people returning from the ashrams, crystal healers.
Damn.
So I went to my first dead show when I was 5, and it just became so normalized. Like my parents are the most conservative, hardcore, mainland Chinese, strict parents. But when it came to weed, they were totally fine with it. And that's because
Interesting.
when we first landed in the United States, the people around us were so involved with weed
It was
that
already normal.
they just thought this was America.
Lucky you.
Yeah, so it's interesting that I'm probably of one of the only Chinese families that are really cool. I saw this text from my dad that was texting me in his broken English. It's Lulu, I have a friend that wants to grow cannabis. Do you have people? Yes, Dad. I'll talk to your friend.
Cute.
And my mom was like really wanting me to come back home to visit because they're still in Oregon. And she's, can you come home? I'm like, Mom, I'm just starting a new project. She's, in what? Because I do tech too. I'm like, in marijuana. And she's, is it legal? I'm like, yes. And she's, okay, are you going to get in trouble? I'm like, no. And she's, okay, good. I don't have to put money aside for the lawyers. Like, they're just.
I hear from other people, it's not my experience, but other people that have parents who are immigrants or them themselves, like coming to the country and being like, all I want is for you to be successful.
Right.
All I want for you as my kid in this world, in this society, is to do the best, which feels like a lot of pressure too.
Yeah,
Do I have to
yeah,
save
yeah.
you?
Yeah. But they're so strict with every other thing imaginable. So it's
Wild.
really hilarious that they're cool with everything that I do. And I'd say pretty supportive. I think
Hmm.
realize now that I'm never going to be that Chinese daughter they wanted to have kids, get married, buy the blah, 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 which I did, but I like no kids, no husband, which is totally amazing. So I'm really
Same.
actually stoked about that. My mom was like, it was really sweet. My mom was like, I used to worry about you so much. but I see that you're probably one of the happiest and most free woman that I know. And I was like,
That's a big statement.
that is a
That's
huge
really
statement.
beautiful.
So I was like, that's mom.
You
You know,
must feel so seen by that statement.
I mean, we Chinese people don't really talk about feelings, and we're not really, oh, I love you or good job.
Mm-hmm.
So when these moments where she says something really profound and like feeling ish, I'm like, oh, it means something so
Yeah, it's extra
much.
special. So was your first experience not only being around weed, but then was using a casual thing and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
encouraged? And was that
So
it was like a positive first experience for you?
So my parents worked all the time. Like I grew up in restaurants, Chinese restaurants, like that. A lot of the opportunities for people, for immigrants that come to the US is around being in the service industries. Aunt, who's closer to my age, I was really curious about marijuana when I was 13 because everybody was doing it. I didn't really know. I smelled it all the time. People were using it. I was like, oh, I'm really interested in this. So she actually went and procured and sat for me. And she gave me 8 bong hits. Extreme family. She's, if you're gonna do it, I think it was always also trying to dissuade me from doing it. So I'm just gonna get you super high. I'm gonna watch you do it. I'm gonna make sure you're safe. And that was my first experience.
Damn, it didn't dissuade you if that was the
It did
goal.
not dissuade me. And I really appreciated her because she was like, her philosophy was like, you're gonna do it anyway. I would rather be have you supervised and make sure everything is cool than have you go out and do something stupid. And the same thing with mushrooms. When I was interested in psychedelics, my uncle went and procured and sat for me. So I just had a
Mm,
very different upbringing. I think it's like Oregon culture, honestly, because it's just something we grew up with and it wasn't really talked bad about. I remember we had the DARE program come into elementary school or middle school, and I was like confused. I'm like, but our principal grows that. Like, I don't understand this.
I think it's really funny that you were like, okay, so I just walked by weed outside. What are
Yeah.
we,
So I'm just
what?
like, I don't understand this, but okay, sure. Like, you don't
Wild.
know
How it's
your kid.
confusing.
Yes, but I think also because the community that we were with was just so positive and nonchalant about it. That experience is really cemented in my mind that community can change everything. Family
Mm,
structure can change everything. Just how it's discussed, how it's treated, how it's used, and the examples that you set for that can change everything. If it's a communist, hardcore Chinese, like Chinese communist family, like opinions completely changed.
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like so many people's introduction to smoking weed is to giggle, right? To get high it is recreational. But it sounds like from an earlier age, you were seeing more sides than that. Like your introduction was seems like a bit more medicinal.
Yeah,
True?
it wasn't taboo, right? So it wasn't like you hear about it, you see it on TV and they're being silly,
Right.
right? It was like, oh, like you can use it because what was cool is a lot of these aunties and uncles were really into Chinese medicine too. So I don't think I took Advil or anything until I left for college. My
Wow.
family was friends going, and I was embarrassed as a kid. It's like friends come over, it's like your mom's been brewing that pot of herbs for 5 days and it fucking reeks. I'm like, it's just the medicine we take. I appreciate that now, but there was a lot of these aunties and uncles would come and do Tai Chi with my family every Saturday.
Mm,
And that was a beautiful like memory. 4 generations, we'd go and do Tai Chi at the school down the street together
hmm.
every Saturday, and they would come. So there was like a lot of just like normal people doing normal things, and it's here's an herb that you could use for things. So I had a very kind of, I took it for granted because then when I was 18 I was like, fuck this shit, no more hemp bracelets and Birkenstocks for me, I'm going to the big city. And this tie-dye does nothing for my hair. Country fair, which was like pre-Burning Man. Like I grew up with all of this, and I was like, oh my God, there's got to be more for the from. Is my trajectory took me from to college in Seattle, which is a very easy transition into the next big city in Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I went to New York. I was like too big of a jump, and then I came back to San Francisco, And then I started getting a lot of tech clients in New York. So I'd be going back and
Mm.
forth between San Francisco and New York. And then I got sick of San Francisco and moved to LA, but still had clients in New York. So it was like bi-coastal probably since 2005,
Oh,
2006.
wow.
And then I was like, okay, West Coast getting a little bit weird for me. I really appreciate the East Coast kind of directness. So I moved full time to New York. And as soon as I landed in New York, I was like, oh, so weed is legal now. Okay. So my friends from college welcomed me back to Washington and they're like, try to fix this tech stuff. And I was like, they just
Mm.
closed APIs on everything. There's nothing I can do. And they're like, why don't you just stay and see if there's anything you want to do in weed? So I stayed on site with them for about 3 years. Again, back and forth with New York because my clients were still in New York. And
Right.
I got to learn from the supply chain side because they had they're one of the tier 3 grower producers. So one of the
Mm.
largest, and they built like at that time, this was 2015, the most state-of-the-art greenhouse, which everyone now is like, oh my God, check out this greenhouse. But I'm like, they had it back then. It was really beautiful. It's still really beautiful. It's mapped to the weather stations. It self-adjusts, like it does complete. Yeah, it's a
Wow.
pretty amazing thing. And then as new markets came online, because part of what they did was on the lab side with all of the machines, I would
Mm.
go with them on build outs to new markets. So and then using UX, like just asking questions all the time and learning more. So that's how I got to be very submerged into the cannabis world for the legal side.
Before you were working in cannabis, were you open about your cannabis use? Even with tech,
Always,
working in tech
always.
and everything, it was
Yeah.
always just like
Bloomberg,
transparent.
Bloomberg was on my clients, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm gonna start doing stuff in weed. And I was just because they would just look at me like, oh, quirky lady. But I did my job. I love that company for a lot of reasons, especially the people. I've always been open. It's part of me. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
a part of me. And if you have a problem with it, that's on you. I'm not trying to. When I was young, I was like trying to hang out with everybody, and like now I'm like, ah, it's good. We don't vibe. That's cool.
That's okay.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been open about everything that I do.
I think
I'm,
that's really beautiful because it just shows those intersections that we all have, and that because that is just your authentic self.
yeah, I'm like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I experienced it from such a really positive, healing, casual, non-taboo space. I'm like, I'm not gonna change that opinion because it hasn't
Mm-hmm.
affected me in a negative way. If it affected me in the negative way, I'd be like, okay, this is what's happening now, but I'm not going to change my narrative to fit someone else's opinion about anything.
And getting rid of that shame and because even, I'm a cannabis user. I talk about it now on the podcast because Minnesota went legal and I was like, oh, we could talk about this now. But even with that and even with all of the positive things it brings me, sometimes that socialized programming bullshit is still in my head. And someone the other day was like, oh yeah, I used to smoke so much. I was smoking every day. And they said it like that. And I was like, huh, that's crazy and
Yeah.
being like, yeah, that's wild. And I'm just like, I do that now and feel the best I've ever felt. Right? Like it took me a moment to be like, oh, that felt weird for a second. And even though I talk about this shit all the time.
Yeah, I think it's because I didn't grow up with it being a shameful thing, so I didn't carry it with me.
Yeah. And I think that another thing that I was really excited to talk to you about is that deprogramming, that non-shameful way, and your work with the Cannabis Media Council. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that because that feels directly connected to this
Yeah,
conversation.
so Amy and Joyce invited me to be part of the Cannabis Media Council, and that whole organization is dedicated to really amplifying out the mainstream media to like really change the taboo and the political stigmatization around about cannabis. Because I think what is it, 2/3 of all states are legal now to some respect, and it's just so that group is very interesting because Amy's done a really great job like opening doors for all of the mainstream media conglomerates like
Mm,
hers. So now we're just trying to break stigma and have these platforms be open to cannabis advertising, whether it's hemp or THC. So it's been a really great, fun campaign. Sister Mercy did a really awesome campaign for us called I'm High Right Now. And really, it's cheeky. It's using some of the stigmatized words and serving them in a different light and using most of our models are elders. We really believe that a lot of the reprogramming and destigmatizing starts within the family unit, and especially with our elders. Because if grandma and grandpa are cool with the weed, then it trickles down to the rest of the family very easily. And then from that family, being able to be not shamed about it within your community.
Yeah.
And it kind of spreads organically outward. So we're very intentional about making sure that we also serve the demographic that probably is one of should be or is one of the highest consumers for cannabis, not smoking, but with the creams and the sleep aids and yeah, and the pain. And so we also saw that no one was really doing anything to target our elders and also going around the regs of advertising. So in a lot of states, if you have to make sure your subject matters are not appealing to one under 21. So we're like, cool, done this check. And
Yeah.
so that's been a really fun campaign. And then the other thing that we release, Amy's side of the house has so let me think of the name. Oh my God. It's our advertising guidelines, full spectrum. So we've just released our second volume and it's case studies. It's really talking about how to be responsible across marketing and advertising your products, your services, and making sure that it's you're made aware of the compliance and regulations that are part of each state.
Are you working with clients as that counsel, or are you just putting out that information for anybody to access?
Yeah, we're just being of service. So the whole idea is if people are interested, we have a really beautiful board that of really amazing veterans that have done so much cannabis. So if there's anybody who is interested, hit up any of our board members. But this is definitely a passion project, really trying to be of service, and we're volunteer group.
The kind of, I don't know, bratty part of me or something, that's not the right word, just wants to be like, ugh, pop culture doesn't matter. We shouldn't pay attention. We shouldn't let it influence us, right?
Right.
Blah, 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 all the shit. And then the reality is, okay, it does. It absolutely does in a lot of different ways. So to be thoughtful about that, especially as this young market grows and wants to be intentional, is probably really important.
Yeah, I don't think I'm like the right demographic to talk about what's out there because I've been so entrenched in this. So that's what we have like on all of my teams or someone that doesn't smoke weed, that isn't part of it because
Of
that's how
course,
we
yeah.
test. That's how we test. Okay, what does this mean to you? Like, how does this feel to you? Tell me more about what you're thinking. What is your perspective? But that's how you build a really great team is you have to not be homogenous. So like the On the
Mm-hmm.
Revel team is very, I hate the term diverse, and we don't lead with that. Like nowhere in our marketing and anything we do, we just keep hammering. We're a diverse group. We're Black owned, we're women owned, we're queer owned. Like we're all of that, but we're not. That's not I don't know. We're just trying to do what we think is right and
Yeah.
having a really like diverse team that comes from different backgrounds, that comes from different skill sets has really been, I think, one of the biggest reasons of our growth and success. Everyone's a fucking genius in their own lane and you trust each other to be able to like be that genius. And that
Mm-hmm.
way my old ass doesn't have to like try to learn everything, right? I'm my brain is full. I just trust in my team members and we're all nerds in our own respect. Jacoby's
Mm-hmm.
a mathematician, Peter is a neuroscientist, I'm on the design side. Saki is an activist like raised by the Black Panthers, and
Incredible.
Jason, who you had, is a human rights lawyer. And then we have Geraldine, who is a marketer and is just a badass, like human that is the best salesperson. So like you have to diversify your team that way. And honestly, the fact that we're a volunteer organization for On the Revel too, and we are literally throwing the largest events in cannabis in New York fucking state is mind-boggling to me
You're
sometimes.
solely a volunteer organization?
Yep. No funding, no investors. Yep.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
incredible.
We are starting to get too big, so we just hired an amazing production team that there's no way the five of us could just handle this. So, so yeah, we've added some folks that consult with us for the time being. But it's just yeah, but we're literally a volunteer organization.
And that the spaces you're creating, because you are a unique group of people, are going to make it safe for other unique individuals to show up and to feel safe, like you said, to ask questions, to cut through the bullshit. But I'm wondering if that was always your experience, or was On the Revel new in that way and felt different. I imagine being a woman of color in tech and or cannabis is maybe not always the easiest lane.
We always laugh about it. It's like the other reason why you have a diverse team is like somebody's gonna like one of you on the team, you know.
You're like, we're just numbers game. It's just increasing the odds that someone's gonna be like, well, wait a second,
You
that
know,
guy.
I think for us to, it's true though.
Sorry.
I think having a background in tech has definitely been helpful as we're
Mm.
growing, meaning that for this event, October 4th and 5th, I looked at 17 different venues. I went and
Damn.
scouted for a year because we've been really fortunate that the smaller venues have been super chill and super cool and friendly with cannabis. Our last event was 25,000 square feet, 30,000 square feet inside and out. We were jam packed in there. We outgrew that space. And so this new one, we're having at Pier 36 in Manhattan, is 60,000 square foot inside and 55,000 square foot outside.
Damn.
The issue with finding spaces that big that can accommodate us is when we're talking to the event salespeople, they're super excited. Then we get to the decision makers at leadership. These are all
Mm.
corporate companies. They're very nervous about cannabis. They're very nervous. So like the normal like dating cycle, I'll call it, for us to get in there is very long. But once
Wow.
people, yeah,
But God forbid you drink everywhere. Sorry.
yeah, exactly. But once we always try to invite them to come to our event, and then
Mm.
once like everyone's so chill. No one really is drinking. Everyone is just like laughing and having a good time and like in one spot. But it's part of that whole like community normalizing. We've been really grateful that we've done the song and dance and courted people in a positive way. And every one of my team members, it's like we leave it better than we find it. Like
Mm.
we take a lot of pride and time to make sure that we leave a positive mark, because then other groups can come and use that space. And I've dealt with these spaces that had a really shitty group come in and lie about things and try to sell things, and that fucks it up for me
Ah.
because I'm not them, but they don't know because that was their
Hmm.
first experience. So it's been really interesting. We try to navigate things in a very respectful way, and we again, always try to leave spaces better than we find them.
What's exciting you right now about the cannabis industry, whether it's your work with On the Revel or the Cannabis Media Council or just something happening in the bigger picture? What's something that's got you jazzed up?
It's really great to see New York's market starting after so many delays and so many lawsuits. So it's great to see my friends who had stores open actually report double, triple revenue now that some of
Wow.
the illicit stores have been shut down. So it's nice to see this full. I'm really excited to see this forward movement that's happening. So I always say that the West Coast is always the innovators for a lot of things. California does something and we hear about it in New York, and then in New York implements it. And then as soon as New York implements it, the whole world implements it. I'm really excited to see how New York can affect the rest of the world in terms of being open to cannabis. And
Mm.
I'm also excited to see, hopefully, that New York can try a couple of things differently. We'll see how conservative they are. We have such a huge culinary scene here in fashion. We have music. We have, it's a center, it's an epicenter of culture. I would love to see if New York State could be a little bit more trusting of their citizens to be able to try some new things around licensing, around being able to incorporate it across other industries. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Minnesota will be able to do that because you guys are really sensible. I was really surprised and happy to see what you guys are doing. I was there for day one at the celebration at where Prince used to play, the venue.
Oh, First Ave.
First Ave, yeah. So I was there for
Okay.
that party, and it was really funny because they're like, okay, everybody come inside because the legislators are on stage. And I went inside, I'm like, where's the legislators? They're like, they're on stage. And I was like, oh, you mean the activist legislators that are on stage? Like, that's not fronting and flossing and egoing on. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I was really pleasantly surprised. Oh, you guys are going to be very sensible about things. I love the fact, and I don't know if things have changed because I've not been keeping in touch because I've been so mired in New York. The fact that you guys can't opt out is pretty fucking dope. The way that you've calculated your stores and your licenses based on population is pretty fucking cool. Like it just seems very sensible. And so I'd love to see something done sensibly.
Yeah, it's exciting. It was exciting to be a part of. And then we had that before it was actually legal. We had that whoopsie daisies law that we suddenly had THC drinks like Delta 9
Oh, that was
before the
crazy.
legalization.
That was
It was
crazy.
batshit up here.
I
It was
was like,
seriously batshit.
wow. Yeah.
Everybody was just like, wait, it's not. You were like going to the co-op and getting THC drinks, but it wasn't legal yet. And
And no
everyone
one
was like,
died. And no one died. Oh my God, no one died. No one,
I
no
guess
one
we're
died.
okay, guys. I guess everyone was just like, what are we doing? It didn't feel real. It felt too silly. I was like, this can't be real.
I feel like my Oregon anarchy like roots are coming back into everything that I do now. I'm like,
Oh, I love it.
you just trust me to like self-govern myself in a way that is not harmful to me or anybody else. I'm cool. Leave me alone. And was having a chat with a friend, just, oh, like we as women need to just stop living in the fairy tale land. I'm like, yes, but I can I like the fairy tale because I can understand now why the woman in the woods living by herself with all the animals makes sense.
Literally
Away
me
from
in
the
my
village.
tiny home in northern
Away from the
Minnesota.
village. Yeah, exactly. So it's really funny. Like life is life.
True. That's the quote. That's the quote right there for the podcast episode. I would love to know too, with all this work that you do and being like entrenched in seeing all the good that's happening and also being aware of like all the other sides of this, the war on drugs, the things that aren't working, all these pieces. How do you take care of yourself in working in this industry?
Psychedelics.
Dope. Pun intended.
Yeah, I'm an advisor to Oakland High Fae and really got into it in 2019, luckily right before the COVID lockdown. I think just reframing COVID was really important. I think the lockdown, half of my friends really took this time to go inward. If you can't go outside, we're just going to go in, right? And then
Whether you like it or not, bitch.
exactly. And then the other set of my friends were just having a really hard time, really trying to relive everything normally. I was really fortunate that I had the sensibility to go inward and figure some shit out and came out of it just feeling very different. It was a very important milestone. And the body self-care I'm still learning about. I'm not the type of girl that is doing the spa treatments and the massages and the nails. Like I just don't have time for that. Maybe I should make more time for that. But I'm running like 3 businesses. So I'm just like, it's a lot.
Well, and just because self-care in somebody else's lane works for them doesn't mean it works for you.
I think self-care really has been around nurturing my peace. And what that means is surrounding myself with people that bring me peace and bring me joy and bring me laughter, bring me inspiration that makes my body feel very happy to be around them. And it's removing anything that doesn't make me feel right and really honing in on that energy and that vibration and trusting my intuition and surrendering to these moments.
Practicing that discernment. I do know whether things feel good or bad. I have to listen.
Yeah. And I think also I'm 49, so I think the perimenopausal stuff is happening. I don't know if we want to talk about this, but
you can talk about whatever you want.
Really interesting to see like all the ads that I'm getting on Instagram with
interesting
the
damn
fear
algorithm.
with this fear of losing hormones and all the things your body like all of the fear-based shit. And what I'm finding is that as this estrogen and progesterone is leaving my body, I'm becoming less concerned about the making someone feel happy or making someone feel comfortable. And I'm like, is this how men get to make decisions all their lives? Because this is fucking awesome. Like not having any emotional like back undercurrent of decision making is fucking phenomenal. I love it so much. I'm like, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you. It's great. I don't know if that's self-care, but like really nurturing the fuck yous and welcoming the fuck yeses.
I think listening to yourself is self-care. Really listening to yourself to me feels like that is self-care right there.
I'm almost 50. I'm really fucking excited about that. I also am very grateful that my culture, Chinese cultures, has instilled in me the respect and the importance of being an elder. So that's, I don't know, that's been really cool. It's good. I'm working my ass off. I have these dreams that I want to do. I have an amazing team. My dog fucking rocks.
Yeah.
There's so many things to be grateful for. And I think also this idea of peace versus boredom.
Ooh, peace versus boredom.
Mm-hmm. Being still and not thinking it is boredom, being still and appreciating peace.
Wow. Wow, I've been thinking a lot about that. I actually just talked in therapy today about finding contentment and finding the space in between. I want to do all these things. I have goals. I thought this would be different. I thought X would be different, letting go of that. And also just being like, but what if you breathe in this moment right now? And what if you do that again for another 5 seconds? And what if you do that again for another 5 seconds?
And I think maybe just like physically, I'm just tired because of my age, but also I don't want to force anything anymore. Like I'm a Leo and I was raised by Chinese dragons. I can make anything happen. I can make that shit happen, but I don't want to anymore. Because
that's powerful.
Because because the analogy, I'm like, why the fuck am I pushing this boulder up the hill? First and foremost, why is there a boulder? And secondly, like, why am I?
No one ever asked that.
I didn't put the boulder down, go around the boulder, and go up the hill. Like,
so
they didn't need it. So I don't know. I just feel like this is the last chapter of my old book of life, or maybe it's the prelogue of my next book of life. But I'm just working my ass off because I really believe that whatever effort that I'm putting out there will return to me at some point without any expectation of when that's supposed to be. Don't get me wrong, we're under deadline. Like I got but I guess the life milestones or the things that I want to happen in my life, I'm really just trusting that the right people will come to me. It's been crazy. I don't want to say it was easy, but now that I've removed all the distractions, like I feel like I'm really tapped into the right things, people, situations, the ease of being able to maneuver when you're at peace is really phenomenal.
Feel like I needed to hear this message today, so I appreciate you sharing that.
Therapy session number 2. Here we go.
I'm like, don't make me cry again.
Yeah. And another thing that I've implemented which has been really instrumental in a lot of change in my life, is I have no free time. And if I'm going to have free time with people, they're going to be people that I can put down as an emergency contact.
Damn. That's powerful. You're gonna make me journal. You're gonna make me journal tonight.
Good girl. Because honestly, like everybody who embodies that has their own shit going on.
Yeah.
They are probably a lot smarter than me. They have my back. They have the resources to get me out of anything in case that happens. And they're so fucking busy doing their life that they're not going to be like causing any drama. Because there's no time for drama when you're busy.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this because it almost feels to me like the advice is be your true self, and not in this is on a poster like with clouds and a rainbow in a classroom somewhere, because it does sound a little cliche, but like truly find out what your authentic self is. And that
and it's
feels
full
like
of shadows, and it's also full of shadows.
And that's okay.
And I think the self-care part that you also asked previously was also meeting my shadows full on and seeing them and accepting them and acknowledging them and telling them, hey, you're cool. I love you too. You're here for a reason. You're just part of me. We're good.
Yeah. That's been helpful for me with my anxiety and depression, and just feeling like they're like, anxiety's at the door again. What does this bitch need? Okay, how do I take care of you? Versus it being like, I'm an anxious bad person, seeing it as this part to be like, no, that just is. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's not good. It just is.
Anxiety is what? The fear of the future, the unknown, and changing. I feel you, sister. Like I just never expressed it. I held it in internally. This whole concept of surrender and being able to trust that there's nothing really to fear. You just have to let it happen and sit with it. And you can feel your anxiety, you can feel the fear, you can feel the depression, you can feel all these things. There's nothing to get rid of. They're part of you. They're not going away. They're here to stay. It's just what type of relationship do you want with those pieces of you.
Oh my gosh, Lulu, I feel like you could just give me nuggets of wisdom here continuously.
I'm an elder-ish now, right? That's the transition.
I will take all of it because I appreciate the way that you are able to have all of these conversations, right? Being your authentic self. We are going from tech to going to talk about our shadow selves. Oh, and I just love that you came on here and you shared about all of that. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Whatever. I might have some wisdom at my age these days, gone through the ringer, but I definitely know the next book of my life is going to be on my terms. And I'm super stoked about that.
I'm excited to see how that book unfolds, and undoubtedly would love to stay connected with you. Yeah, sure. I had other questions on my little notes here.
Oh, yeah, so. Yeah. For sure. Anytime. Like, your vibe is really awesome. Like,
thank you.
Yeah, super. I'm like, we're going to be friends. Like, we're going to.
Okay, I was feeling that too, but I didn't want to say it. I was like, okay, I feel like we could be friends, just saying.
I just love amazing women. Like, I've always been a sister, because I really also appreciate the Chinese culture. It's women are your friends and your sisters and your comrades. They're not
competition. Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, like, my shadows have been hungry. So I'm not saying those pieces are out of me. They surface. They need feeding once in a while. They're in the back seat now. They're not driving the car. They're chilling.
That makes a difference. That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wanted to share with listeners that I didn't give you space to do?
No, you've been so gracious. And is there any other piece of my life? We talked about tech. We talked about On the Revel. We talked about getting older. We talked about self-care. I think you got all the pieces in me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing all those pieces. I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to an episode of Consciously Cannabis. If you're not ready for this episode to be over, don't worry. Every Consciously Cannabis episode has bonus content. Sometimes guests and I will smoke together. Maybe you'll see some of my friends and I toke up. Who knows? Go to patreon.com/consciouslycarly and get all the bonus content. And thank you so much for listening to this new series. If you enjoyed it, remember to hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Share it with a friend. Tell someone you know. Anything helps, and I so appreciate it. See you next time.